Your logo might be hurting your business, and today I'm going to explain why. So you're either watching this because you're starting a photography business, or you're not seeing the results that you wanted to see in your current photography business. Or maybe you just have competition that seems to be taking all of the business, or maybe you just can't seem to get people to hire you for one reason or another. I know this is frustrating, and it almost makes you want to try to give up sometimes. Honestly, it shouldn't be this hard to do business. You have a service that people need to use, so why aren't they using it? Oftentimes we think it's a photography problem, so we buy new equipment and we take all these tutorials, which you should, by the way. But oftentimes it's really just a brand problem, not so much a photography problem. Now, I've been there, and the truth is I'm actually going through this process right now. Now, my real estate photography business has a fairly strong brand. The logo is designed and everything, but my personal brand is still very much in the beginning stages, and I'll probably talk about that in another video. Now, when I first started, I didn't really understand the concept of branding to the extent that I do now. I thought that I knew some of the basic concepts and thoughts behind logo design. I thought, okay, I have this business I want to start, so I need to go make a logo because that's what you do, right? So I made this logo with an aperture, of course, and then I used this like distressed font with stuff all over it, because that's what was cool at the time. And back then, I wanted to be a little bit more edgy. I wanted people to know that I was more of an edgy kind of photographer. So that's exactly what I thought my logo communicated. The problem is, I wasn't an edgy photographer. I was actually kind of timid and kind of chill. It didn't really match the logo I was going for. So from there, I took away that whole distressed font, but I kept the aperture. But then I kind of thought to myself, well, does anybody really know what this aperture is? I mean, most people don't actually. So after I started reading a little bit about marketing and branding, I learned a lot from some of the big shot photographers in the wedding and portrait world, because that's where I was coming from. And I really began to understand what branding was. There was this book called Fast Track Photographer by Dane Sanders that I participated in, and we basically wrote out an essay kind of what your business is. And then you kind of narrow it down into chunks, and eventually you have 3 words or something like that that you narrow it down to. And that's kind of how I really understood what branding meant. But I still had a lot to learn. So from there, I took that information and I went to one of those logo competition companies, and I gave them the description of my business and the whole brand. And I had a pretty solid logo design that matched me and the people that I was trying to market it to at the time. They made like an emblem for me that didn't really mean anything, but it communicated like a peacefulness and a balance that I was trying to communicate in my wedding and portrait work. Kind of an earthy kind of feel. My entire website had matched that brand. And for the most part, I'd say that because of that brand and my website and everything that I did, it actually made me a fairly successful wedding and portrait photographer. I can say, honestly, it was probably mostly because of the brand, not just because of the photos. I mean, my photos were fine, but all of it was interweaved is what I'm trying to say. I didn't build my business on the photos themselves. It was the brand. Now, since then, I've studied branding as a whole through books, courses, even training in the corporate world. I wouldn't consider myself an expert by any means, but I do consider myself qualified enough to talk about the subject as it relates to us photographers. Now, the problem with branding is that everyone at one point or another thinks that the logo you have is the brand. But your logo is not the brand. The logo is simply a representation of your brand. So what is your brand? Your brand is you. Your brand is your company, whether you're a personal brand or an entity. It's how you present yourself. It's how you dress and talk and walk. It's your values, your morals, as a person or an entity. It's your style. It's the way you make people feel. You can think of it this way. Your brand is kind of like an image or a feeling that you project onto the world. And when it comes to logo design, well, this is why you might see me cringe when people use a camera or a house or an aperture even for their logo. Okay, let me clarify. It's okay if those elements are used, but only if they accurately represent the message you're trying to communicate. So a solid brand's going to make a client or a potential client feel a certain way. Apple is a perfect example. So do you think that Apple fans exist because of the operating system? No, it's because of their design. Everything about their design, not just the design of their machines, but the design of the entire experience working with Apple or doing anything with Apple. You know, from the way their employees dress, their ads, the design of their products, including the names of their products, the names of their apps. Every single thing that Apple does is designed intentionally. It's designed with the brand in mind. Now, the opposite happens when it comes to the PC. The problem with the PC is that there's really no brand identity of the PC itself. The PC is an idea almost. There's these computer manufacturers, they have their own brands like Dell and HP, but Microsoft certainly has a brand. But how does a Mac user think of a PC? What do they think about? They think it's unstable. They think they're cheap. They think they get viruses all the time. They think they're slower. But any PC users are likely going to say that's not actually the case. So how is this possible? It's all about the branding. This is why branding your photography business is super critical if you don't want to just have another or be another commodity. All right, so you really want to build a business that customers are going to latch onto and they're going to become loyal to. If you want to do that, you have to brand yourself. Okay, so how do you go about branding yourself or your company? Well, you could hire a company to help you through that process for thousands of dollars, but chances are most of us really aren't in a position to do that just yet. There's different programs you could follow or books you could read that could help you do this on your own. For me, for example, I used the story brand format as I talked about in this video here. And at the very basic level, you could do something as simple as writing down on a sheet of paper all of the things that are important to you, how you want people to perceive you, how much money you make, or that you want to make rather. Pretty much just sit down and write a short or long essay about your dream photography business. And from there you can have a close friend or a significant other read it and have them ask some questions, okay? You're going to take those questions that they ask, you're going to write those down, you're going to answer them, and you're going to include that as part of this exercise. From there, what you're going to do is you're just going to take everything down that you wrote, you're going to paraphrase it, you're going to trim out the fat, and you're just going to leave the bones. Because this is your foundation, and building a strong foundation is what's going to help you build a sustainable business, okay? I can assure you that regardless of the steps that you take to begin the process, when you're finished, you're going to have so much more clarity in your business. It's going to help you regardless, okay? Now, even when you go to have your logo designed to match your brand, you can take this paraphrased essay that you've written and share it with your designers, because what they design should more closely match the brand that you're trying to build. It should match that essay that you wrote. Now, you guys, you should really start working on this today, or even just thinking about it today, okay? Even if it's just the simple exercise of writing it out and taking that essay that I talked about, just start today. I can tell you from personal experience that at the very least, you're going to have a lot of clarity in your business, and you're maybe even going to have a stronger sense of purpose for what it is that you do. Now, at best, your business completely changes. You're going to find that your business is literally going to grow on its own. It seems like it's going to be on its own, but it's going to grow into this brand that you've made, possibly even beyond that. I could not imagine that my business would be where it is today had I not done some branding, okay? Now, if you don't strongly consider rebranding your business, you're likely going to stay where you're at, or eventually you're going to quit, or eventually, or you might even just grow really slowly. But hey, maybe I'm completely wrong and I don't know what I'm talking about, okay? You might be perfectly comfortable with how things are going for you. Hey, look, if that's the case, don't change a thing. Just keep doing exactly what you're doing and just be happy, be satisfied. But if you're one of those people that are just struggling and you want to get somewhere else with your business, or it's just not moving anywhere, you have to rebrand. Now, I'm going to highly suggest watching this video on how I rebranded my business using the story brand method, okay? Hopefully, it's going to demonstrate this whole process that I talked about. Now, thanks so much for watching, you guys. We'll see you next week with a brand new video.